All right, welcome. I'm gonna quickly introduce myself. So I am Tori Soriano, Digital Organizing Manager at Dream.org. I will be one of our MCs for tonight, and then I'm gonna pass it over to our newest coworker to introduce ourselves, my co-MC.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabby Vice Monica. I will be, as Tori said, co-emceeing. I'm so happy to be here and I'm really excited to join the webinar with you guys.
But let's go here to what tonight is going to be all about. So we're going to start off with an icebreaker, kind of pushing for justice, what's motivating you, what's hyping you up for the year to fight for the good fight. That will be for 5 minutes. Then we'll move on to our federal priorities. And we have an upcoming virtual lobby day that's going to be happening soon. So we'll make sure to plug you into those details. Then we're going to go over our state priorities. We have a few states that we're working directly in, so we'll talk about those campaigns, as well as our upcoming Day of Empathy in a lot of different locations, and we'll let you know what that is if you're not familiar with Day of Empathy. And then we're going to end off in breakout rooms. So the point of this webinar is not just to tell you about the work, but to get you involved in the work. And so we're going to divide you up. If you are part of one of our state campaigns, you will go to that particular room in that particular state to learn about the legislation more and how you get involved. And if you are not part of that state, you will stay in the main room. We'll talk more about the federal campaigns and how you can get involved in those. So that's why it's very important if you haven't already, oops, keep going backward, boop, boop. To prepare for the breakout session, if you can take a moment really quick to rename yourself on Zoom and add your state abbreviation or the state you're tuning in from, so we could sort you out into breakout rooms a little bit easier later. But let's go ahead and get started with our very first breakout room. This will be kind of very short, 5 minutes. We'll split you up and we're going to talk about what's motivating you and what difference would you like to make in your community, no matter small or large. And so we'll split you up in a moment. I'll broadcast this question in the chat so you don't forget. And go ahead and meet some of the people that you will be working alongside in the fight for justice. So let me know when you're ready, Harrison, to start sorting that out.
Yep. All right. We're gonna send you all off in three, two, one.
All right. See you in 5 minutes.
You should know that I'm calling or I'm on the line with from Central Arkansas, and I have a radio show. And yesterday, one of my radio guests was Ruby Welch.
Oh,
Hey.
wonderful. Ruby's joining us today. I know she's been having some connection issues, but it's great to have you here, John. Thanks for joining.
She's been on my radio shows. There she is. I thought I saw her there. Ruby Welch, who I described on air yesterday as a force to be reckoned with.
All right. Just making sure everyone's back from the breakout rooms. Hopefully, I know it was quick, but hopefully you got to meet some folks and have a few discussions. Feel free to continue those discussions in the chat while we're continuing on with this conversation. I also invite you to, if you have any questions about the legislation that we're about to go over, feel free to type it in the chat in the QA section. The breakout rooms will be the best time to get these questions answered. But just so you don't forget them, type them in the chat, type them in the QA button, and we'll make sure that one of us on staff will be able to answer your question or at least redirect you. But with that, I'm going to, and you guys can see my screen again when you're
Yep.
back up. Sweet. All right. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to our federal legislation section and hand it over to Amanda and Candia.
Hey everyone, my name is Amanda Hall. I'm the Senior Director of National Campaigns. I want to start us off by talking about some federal legislative priorities, but Candia, our fearless Government Affairs Director, is going to bring it home. So you all only have to deal with me for a few minutes before you get to hear Candia's amazing voice and his amazing thoughts. But yeah, so we wanted to kick it off and tell you about a new campaign over here at dream.org. In August, the end of August, we launched our Public Health is Public Safety campaign. This campaign has to deal with really building communities of care as opposed to criminalization. So unfortunately, things like mental health, substance use, there's so many things that we continue to criminalize. And working at the intersection of, criminal justice and health for as many years as I have, I just keep seeing numbers be devastating. Between 2011 and 2018, overdoses while incarcerated increased 600%. So the people that we love are dying within facilities. When they get out, folks are 27 more times more likely to die of a fatal overdose. We're seeing bills to criminalize things like mental health, substance use disorder, that are leaving families without parents, taking kids away from mothers, and devastating whole communities. So this campaign is all around how do we shift that narrative? How do we show that taking care of the folks that we love, our communities, actually makes us safer? And it does. Stats show us that. We know that as people that have maybe lived through those systems. Um, but our Public Health is Public Safety campaign, we're working on legislative and or executive actions in 5 states. So that's Kentucky, Arkansas, New Mexico, Arizona. Oh, not yet. Uh, and also, we are working with our health and justice ambassadors, which is our next slide. So, for the first time ever, though we work on a lot of legislative priorities and really try to get to the people that hold power that can change our laws, we also know that people power, organizing and building communities is essential. We cannot do this work without community, without people by our side. So, our first ever health and justice ambassadors, uh, and these ladies are powerhouses. So we have Sandra in Oregon, Emily in Mississippi, uh, LaShondra out in Arkansas, and Sheena in Missouri. Right now, they are organizing in their communities, telling folks about the campaign, building this infrastructure. Right now, federally, there is some things happening. We hear about it all the time. But how do we build an infrastructure of people to protect our communities, to make us safer? And these amazing individuals are starting to help us with that. Next slide, please. So, on the federal level, which is this section, what y'all came here to hear about, we are launching our first big action for the Public Health is Public Safety campaign. In April, we are going to have a virtual lobby day. So what we want, and don't get me wrong, later in the year, we'll have some in-person lobby days as well. But right now, what we want is for folks to be able to meet with their members of Congress, to tell them why investing in communities as opposed to furthering the carceral system, continuing to lock folks up is not making us safer. What makes us safer is mental health resources, people being able to access treatment, people being able to clear their records, to have good jobs and provide for their family. So We definitely need you all to join the Public Health is Public Safety campaign, and come join us for this virtual lobby day. We definitely want to give y'all an opportunity to meet with those folks who are elected to represent you. They work for you. They are supposed to do your bidding. So come and tell them what your communities need, what kind of changes that need to take place. If you are interested in joining this, please fill out the form that's in the chat. You'll be able to have these meetings with someone on the dream.org team. You know, we did this a year ago or two around another federal bill, and that day we got numerous co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle because they need to hear from their constituents. So now Candia is going to tell us a little bit more about these federal priorities and what we're going to be working on together. Candia?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda, and thank you for the introduction to the Public Health is Public Safety campaign. As you were talking about the Public Health is Public Safety campaign, I can't help but to remember a symposium I went to at the University of Michigan not long ago, where they brought together a number of academic institutions that included University of Virginia, Duke, Harvard, as well as others, and they all declared that mass incarceration is a public health crisis. And so, you know, the name public health is public safety didn't just come from nowhere. There's a body of research that supports our campaign and our effort. And so it is evidence-based. And let me also state that, you know, Amanda touched on, you know, the history of our empathy network being engaged in our federal campaigns vis-a-vis lobby days. And I always say this, and as much as I say this, I think I don't say it enough. And that is the success that we've enjoyed in passing bills at the federal level, or being successful in different initiatives and getting co-sponsors. That the success we've enjoyed is due to your efforts. We don't have the success that we have on our government affairs side without your engagement. Your engagement transcends party lines because you are the constituents. And there is a history that has bear that out. Like, you know, there were Republicans that many thought were not gettable. And it was you, our empathy network, that was successful in getting them. And so you're important to this campaign. And so as I talk about, as much as I'm going to talk about these pieces of legislation, and it's important for you to engage in it and really know about them, I just need you to know that your energy, the energy you bring to our campaigns is what drives the success. And I'm going to talk about, I think if we have 4 bills that we're going to discuss today, but know that there are a number of bills that we'll be discussing and lobbying on throughout the year. But these are just the 4 bills that we're going to lobby on the 9th. And so the first bill is the Reentry Act, which allows individuals to have access to Medicaid 30 days before they are released from their incarceration. And we will have a training on all of this for those who sign up. But we just want to give you a sort of primer for what we're going to be talking about on the 9th. The next piece of legislation is the Due Process Continuity of Care Act, which allows folks who are held on pretrial to maintain their Medicaid benefits while incarcerated. As you know, access to health care is important, you know, for folks as they are looking, really looking to maintain their health and be productive in our society. And so we think that those 2 bills are really work in tandem with one another. And so we'll be lobbying for those. Another bill that we're going to lobby on is the Clean Slate Act, which allows for record sealing for federal cases. Right now, as you may know, you cannot get an expungement if you have a federal record. And so we think it's, you know, after a certain period of time, that federal record should be expunged automatically. And so we are supporting this piece of legislation on the 9th as well. Then the next piece of legislation is the mens rea reform, which speaks to, right now there's a low burden that the government has to reach in order to prove state of mind. And so we think that, you can't tell me what I was thinking or tell me what I knew at the time that something was going down. And so we think the government needs there needs to be a higher burden of proof relative to state of mind. And so we are going to partner with actually right-leaning organizations to advance this piece of legislation. Many of you may be aware of discussions that we've had in the past around conspiracy reforms. We don't think it's a climate right now for conspiracy reforms. And so mens rea in our effort is an entree into conspiracy reforms. And so we will talk about these bills in detail as we get closer to the lobby day. And so we look forward to everyone's participation. We have 74 folks on the call. It would be great if we can get to 74 members of Congress. Some of the other bills that you may hear us talking about are the Restore Act, which restores SNAP benefits to people with drug felony convictions. And then another bill is the Fair Future Act, which repeals the Thurman Amendment and restores housing rights for people with drug felony convictions. And so we will have probably separate lobby days on those, but you will hear us talk about those bills as well. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Amanda, and we will get you involved. Or if you don't have our contact, in fact, we can put our contact, I'll put my contact in the chat. And please feel free to get in touch with us.
And well, if you have any questions, you can add them to the breakout session because both of you guys will be in the federal breakout room. But I'm going to pass it over to Lauren, who's going to be talking about our state legislative priorities in 2025.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren Johnson, and my colleagues are going to be sick of hearing this, but I always tell everybody that I am from Austin, which is a beautiful city, except we're surrounded by Texas, and I'm really feeling that as we go into our legislative session here. But we're here to talk about our other state legislative priorities. We're currently working in several states across the U.S., and as Candia mentioned, we are working on lots of bills. We're just highlighting our main priorities, but not to say that we're not going to be doing defensive work against bad legislation. And we also have other legislation that we're working on, but we would be here all day talking about bills. And we just kind of want to highlight the priorities that we're working on. So next slide. So in Kentucky, we're prioritizing the Kentucky Clean Slate Act, which is a little bit similar to the federal legislation, but the Clean Slate Act would just automate what's already available to people. Kentucky has a large portion of people who have criminal backgrounds, and automating this process would save people a lot of time. It's a very burdensome process. It costs money. It's not clear. And so automating this process would allow for people to have better employment opportunities for housing, et cetera. And that is being headed up by the fabulous Selena Coomer. And then next, in Arizona, we're working on quite a few bills as well, but the one we're here to talk about today is the Independent Correctional Oversight Bill, which would establish an independent oversight body over the Arizona Department of Corrections. A lot of our state prisons have oversight that is part of the prison system, and the fox watching the hen house is not generally the best way to go about things. So we want to see an independent body of oversight. Next slide. Pennsylvania. So you heard a little bit about the Fair Future Act on the federal level. Yusuf Dahl is working in Pennsylvania to also work to allow people with drug distribution charges to have a pathway for fair housing protections that everybody else already has, except for people with drug distribution charges. Next slide. ML Smith is our fabulous leader in Missouri who's working on an Informant Transparency Act. A lot of wrongful convictions are due to confidential informants and false testimony. And so we want to start providing some checks and balances on our system so that people don't wind up doing very long sentences wrongfully based on informant testimony. Next slide. Wisconsin's got a lot going on as well. So we are working to put a cap on supervision there. A lot of people wind up back in the system based on technical violations that aren't actually crimes, but can still take somebody back to prison for lengthy sentences. And so we want to cap the amount of time that people are on supervision, and we also want to reduce or end technical violations in Wisconsin. Next slide. And then in Washington State, we've got the Judicial Discretion Act and juvenile points retroactivity. So judicial discretion would allow for judges to re-sentence somebody to a lesser sentence if, you know, over time we realize that our sentencing policies become extreme and we get new information. And so this would give judges an opportunity to look at that new information and make a decision to reduce somebody's sentence on the back end. And then also for juvenile points in adult sentencing, we ended the practice of counting what somebody did as juveniles on their adult sentences, but we still have hundreds of people, maybe even thousands, I want to say, that are still doing long sentences because it was not made retroactive. And so we want to see that be retroactive. And I think that's it for me. I'll pass it over to Brittany Lee.
Hey y'all, I'm hailing to you from good old Wisconsin, where we make a lot of cheese and have a lot of beer. So I'm just here to introduce you to Day of Empathy. I'm the senior manager of the Empathy Network, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about what's going on. So Day of Empathy is the nation's largest day of action of criminal justice reform. Basically, what we do is this day brings together people from all walks of life who've been negatively impacted by America's criminal justice system. It could be survivors of violent crime or just survivors of crime, to those who are currently incarcerated or those who've never been incarcerated but are interested in this issue and want to advocate for reform and freedom for those in our communities. So with that, this year we're going to be having 12 days of empathy all across the country, and we would love for you to attend one. So check out our website, dream.org, Day of Empathy, to sign up and see if we have one in a state near you. I also will just do a shameless plug. Next week, our cohort is actually, the application is being launched. If you haven't heard about our Dream Justice cohort, I will say that we are the best cohort in the nation, where you get to learn about how to be an advocate, learn how to organize, and how to impact policy. So that's launching next Monday on February 10th, and I'd love to see you there.
All right.
Here are sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I would say here are our leaders all across the country that are leading these wonderful Day of Empathy. So we have one in Oregon, we have one in Washington, we have California, Arizona, Texas, Arkansas, Tennessee, which if you're in Tennessee, I will see you there. We also have one in Missouri, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Michigan, my state, Wisconsin, and then also in Minnesota.
Perfect. Thank you, Brittany. Yeah, we have a lot going on in so many different states. And so you can use the QR code or the link that was posted in the chat if you're interested in tuning in to see if there's a Day of Empathy next to you. And we will make sure to share out that cohort information once it's launched next week. So stay tuned. But now it's time for the breakout activities. So you got to know or got to see quickly the legislation that we're working on. You got to see the faces of the folks that are going to be pushing out important reforms in your state. And so now it's the time, the opportunity to meet them and get involved in the fight. If you live or are voting member of the following states: Arizona, Kentucky, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Washington, or Wisconsin, you will be sent into a meet and greet room with that campaigner as well as one of our dream.org staff. This is an opportunity to share a little bit about yourselves. They're going to share a little bit about themselves, the work that they're working on, and how you can get involved. So this is, have fun, exchange contact information. If you want information, you want more details, you want to get involved. This is also an opportunity that if you have questions, if you posted in the Q&A for specific state information, this is where you'll get your answers. And so make sure to bring your questions, your queries, and your support. If you are not in one of these states, then you will remain in this main room. We'll keep you here, and you're going to learn more about the federal work. We went very quickly with the federal bills that we're going to be working on in the virtual lobby day. And so this is another opportunity to learn more about them, get more information, hear more from India and Amanda, and then learn more about our virtual lobby day and how you can get involved and help us with guarantee success on that. All right. Hey, everybody. Once again, if you belong to Arizona, Kentucky, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Washington, feel free to type it in the chat and Harrison will add you in. But this might be everyone here that's not, so welcome. First off, I wanted to open this up as an opportunity for questions because I know we went through a lot of different legislation, different bills, different dream.org priorities. And so this is an opportunity. You have Amanda and Candia who are ready to go for your questions or queries about what's going on in 2025. And so feel free if you want to come off mute or put it in the chat with your questions, but I wanted to start off with that as an opportunity. And Gabby, I don't know if we had any questions throughout the presentation that you could share aloud to answer.
Yeah, let me check it out. I don't think I saw anything. Someone did ask if we have any plans to do work in Virginia, if anyone has any insight to that.
Yes, I did. I think I received a private message, but I know that the decisions around that would go through Lauren. And so that was my response there because it came to me directly. But I do think touching bases with Lauren about that. I know that our campaigns for this year have already set in stone, and so it doesn't mean that there are an opportunity for future campaigns.
Does anyone else have any questions or need any refreshers on any of the bills or legislation that we went over? I know it was a lot. You might already forget. Oh, what was that? What were we talking about? So let me know if we want a refresher, if we want me to put up any slides again, or any further explanations from Candia and Amanda on the legislation that we're supporting on the federal level.
We also got a question in the Q&A from Valerie Taylor. Valerie, it's also really good to see you here. Appreciate you showing up to a lot of these gatherings.
Good to be
What
here.
is the interest? Yeah, thanks for being here. What is the intersection of this legislation with homelessness?
Yeah,
India, can
you
you
want me
speak to
to, you want
that?
me to jump
Or
in,
yeah,
Candy?
Amanda, yeah,
I'll give
please.
you, I'll give him a break. Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of alarming trends with like over 100 pieces of proposed legislation to criminalize folks that are unhoused, be that camping ordinances. I mean, there's a million different things, putting restrictions on even housing or shelters, how they spend their money, putting up more barriers. So when we look at folks that have been formerly incarcerated, they're 10 times more likely to actually be unhoused because of a lot of things that like Galen, John Candia brought up with carve outs with these laws that keep getting proposed and passed in a lot of states to block folks from being able to fully reenter after incarceration. So when we look at things like the reentry waiver around the United States, states are able to now apply for something called an 1115 reentry waiver, which can provide Medicaid for folks before leaving prison or jails. We know that folks are 20 times more likely to die of an overdose within the first 2 weeks. Like I said, 10 times more likely to be unhoused. So what this does is allow them case management, medications for mental health issues, more access to that kind of health care while incarcerated, medications for folks that have substance use disorder. And so we're already seeing some really hopeful research that talks about how expanding that type of healthcare actually reduces recidivism, which probably nobody's confused about that. And along with that, we're even seeing some states do more when it comes to um, housing, nearly not enough, but something called a HRSN waiver, which is a health-related social needs waiver, that can help with temporary housing. So yeah, so all of the combination, all of the bills that we're working on really is aimed at building those communities of care, those communities where people can thrive. And yeah, folks that are in house definitely have um, a big place in that. And in a lot of our states, we work with advocates on the ground to fight back some of these horrible bills that criminalize folks that are in house, and then yeah, try to proactively support when folks are doing good work.
But I know we got a few more questions, and so yeah, it is directed to Candia, this question, but it may be or anybody who wants to share. Can you talk about the dream? Oh, looks like Harrison, you want to talk about it? He'll talk about the social media campaign to surface stories by denied housing. I can bring that link up too.
Yeah. Let me share my screen real quick. So, Yusuf, I think you're in a good position to plug my, but I'll do my best. We have a new form on our website geared to source stories from anybody that's ever been denied housing as a result of a drug distribution conviction. You've likely been impacted by the Thurman Amendment. And we want to hear from you so that we can repeal this terrible law and fight for housing justice because we don't think that, somebody's past should dictate their access to, human rights that should be inalienable. And I'm gonna, if it hasn't already been dropped in the chat, I will do that shortly. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Tori.
Yeah, you're welcome. Um, so yeah, with that, I know we don't have much time for the breakout rooms. But similar to that, for the virtual lobby day, we're looking for support to help really make this as impactful as it can. And so that will require more than just dream.org staff getting involved. And so we're looking for folks when they sign up for the virtual lobby day, if they're interested in doing a little bit more that involves, and I'll bring this back up to when the folks join us in the main breakout room. But that involves like we're looking for folks who are interested in research. If you're one of those folks that like Googling and data collecting is your thing, we would love it for you to help us find facts and stats that's going on across the country to really help amplify the messaging and the storytelling that we want to share that goes along with this legislation. Um, we're looking for folks for outreach. I think for folks who RSVP'd for this webinar, thank you, Aaron, if you're out here today, for sending out texts reminding people to join. We're looking people for something like that, just to send a text reminder to get people to remember to join with us, to send out outreach calls and text messages to really help generate people to come out to this in waves and numbers. And then we're looking for folks who might have a story. If a lot of this federal legislation resonates with you, we'd love for you to share your story or the story of your community, help amplify that messaging so people want to attend, and then maybe present your testimonial at the lobby day itself. And so if any of those roles sound like you would love to help participate in, or you want to dabble in, we'll provide the training, we'll provide the resources. And so, um, yeah, I think is everyone back from the breakout rooms now?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Well, first off, thank you everybody for coming. Hopefully the state conversations were fruitful and you really got to find your place in their fight. And we're going to go to the Day of Empathy or help in many other ways. If you hadn't already, please feel free to drop contact information now so people can exchange these numbers and join in. We'll make sure that you will have access to a lot of the links that we're posting in the follow-up email, so that it doesn't get lost or you're like, oh man, I forgot to get this person's contact information. We'll find other ways, and you can always contact one of us on the staff to get more information. For us on the federal legislation, and if you missed out on those conversations, I'll kind of reiterate my last points. But for the virtual lobby day, we're really looking for people to help make this like the biggest lobby day ever. 2025 has been hard enough, and we really need the support of the community to really get things done. And so, if you are willing, when you sign up for the virtual lobby day, you can check a box that asks you how you want to help out. We're looking for folks if you like looking at research and adding to the story with lots of stats and numbers and um, get really like granular with the information. We would love a research team or research folks to like really add to that. Outreach team for text and phone banking. You've probably seen me, the text banking and phone banking queen out there. We'd love to get the message out to get people to come and to remember to come. And then lastly, we're looking for legislative testimonials and storytellers. So if you have a story to tell that really resonates with some of the federal bills that we've touched on, a lot of the public health and public safety campaign, please check that box. We'll provide the training or the resources. And as the virtual lobby day is happening, that we will make sure that you are ready to really help make it as impactful as we can. And so all those links are dropping off. You could see the Day of Empathy days if you haven't already RSVP'd for the one in your local area. But that's pretty much the end. I know it looks like we have a little bit of, we have 3 minutes till the end if you want to stick around and ask a few questions if it didn't come up to some of our guest speakers. We'll stick around. But everyone else, thank you again for attending, and we will see you later to really help us bring justice in 2025.
Thanks, folks. I'm off mute and say goodnight. I know Amanda also wanted to chat with Barbara too.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care.
y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.